This is the Tapped In Podcast, the podcast for beverage distributors that want to empower their sales team to drive business results. Listen up and welcome back to the Tapped In Sales Podcast. I'm your host, Bud. Mikey, how are you?
I'm good, man. How are you?
I'm good. You've been on the road on vacation / work remote. Where are you in the world right now?
Yeah, I am down in sunny Naples, Florida, down here for a couple weeks visiting the in-laws and getting some work done remotely. So yeah, it's great.
You're on the face of the sun with how hot it is in Florida right now.
It is definitely hot, but actually this week with the heat wave in Michigan, it's warmer back home than it is down here.
That's crazy. It was really warm. Yeah, it's gonna be warm this weekend too, which is, I mean, it's 90. It's kind of tis the season. Maybe it's a little hot for June, but it does get up to 90 in Michigan now.
Yeah, I heard it's pretty humid too.
It is. Well, for me this week, I was on site with a client alone. I had to have a couple meals all by myself after having some beers with the guys. But you missed out on some good Indian food in Illinois.
Oh, really? Yeah, because you were Southern Illinois, right? We were all together.
More like Central.
Okay.
Yes.
Yeah, we were all together a couple weeks ago, a little bit more to the north, and you took that one on by yourself.
Yes, I went to this place, Signature Indian in Bloomington, Illinois. It was very tasty. I thought so. I mean, I'm a sucker for Indian food. I know that's not your vibe yet.
Well, did they have a kids menu? If they had a kids menu, I'd be fine.
Give me time, Mikey, and you will get into it. And then the other thing I noticed, we did the podcast last week on owning your route. There were multiple times that talk was talked about from leadership with the ASMs and with the reps around this is about owning your route. So it was just fun to see a topic that we kind of talked about come to life in real time, and really kind of see that filter through the organization in the short time that I was there this week. So that was awesome.
Yeah, that's awesome. Good stuff.
Now this week, on the topic of this week's episode, we are going to talk about maybe a boring topic for some of us. I might think this is boring in terms of organizing the data and data cleanliness as being the topic. But the outcomes you get from it are not boring. And this is something you really love and have enjoyed, right, Mikey?
Yeah. And this will probably hit home for a lot of people listening, maybe some reps that are frustrated with the way things are coded. And maybe, some leadership that realize how unorganized it is and just never really think about going in and taking the time to do it. So yeah, this could hit home to quite a few people.
So we're going to talk a lot about data cleanliness. It's going to be the focus, and really kind of go through some, hierarching ideas around products, customers, other items. A lot of this is going to be done in your RAS, your route accounting software, and how you're designing and laying out the various processes and data cleanliness side. So let's get into products first. So the one that I think these are kind of ordered, Mikey, in the right order. But let's start with products in terms of the items that we sell to retail, and let's go to package configuration first. And some of the stuff that we see with clients, because we're using their data, is that we've got 4-6, 6-4, 212 bottles, 212 cans. We've got all these various package configurations, and one of the big call outs to start with is one package config for one package config, right?
Right.
And there's so many different package configurations, and what somebody might call something from a supplier and what you might call something in your system from a different supplier, if they're basically the same, I think you just got to pick a lane and stick with one version of them.
Absolutely. I think it's just keeping it simple, right? It comes back to let's keep it simple and let's keep it consistent. So if you're running a report, or if you're one of our clients and you're using the VXP on the app, the more clean and more consistent it is to where different packages. If I'm going in to search a 16-ounce can, I want it to be -4-6-16 ounce, can, where a lot of places we've seen 3 to 4 different package configurations just for that. It could spell out can, or it could just be C, or there's different ways. So yeah, keeping it consistent across the board, whether you're using our platform or you're just running a report and you want to narrow in on something.
Mikey, do you know what the vernacular or kind of like the short term is for NR?
Non-returnable.
And we're still using that.
We're still using it. How many bottles do we return to our suppliers?
So, quick history lesson. At one point in time in the business, bottles were returned to the breweries. So, it used to just be 4, 6, 12-ounce bottles, BTL would be what a lot of wholesalers would do. And then as brewers started to have items that were non-returnable, so this was a bottle that was not to go back to the brewery, was not to be recycled back and refilled and bottled and recapped with product, we started throwing NR on it. And what I always thought was hilarious, once I learned this when I came back into the business with my family, was that, we still had NR labeled on every single one of our bottle items, and we hadn't sent a bottle back to the brewery for 35 years or whatever at this point.
It's crazy.
It's bananas. Now, I'm thinking through, this is a question, because I'm seeing more and more of this, like 19.2s, and we're going to pick on the single serve because this is a really easy game to pick on the single serve. So 19.2s, 24-ounce, 25-ounce cans, where we're seeing 2 we're seeing 12-pack 19.2s, 15-pack 19.2s, 24-pack 19.2s. And then in the 25-ounce and the 24-ounce game, we're seeing 12 24s, 15 24s, and 3. What are the package where there are 3? The single serves are together. Is it like 3 25-ounce cans and
5
4?
5 3-packs.
There it is, 5 3-packs. And they're doing that, rinse and repeat that confusing thing for 25-ounce cans too. And like, do you see a world? I think I know why we wouldn't do this, but tax purpose and reporting wise, you would want to know how many individual units. But do you see a world where like it would make more sense to just label stuff as what the individual item is? Because all those items are to be sold at retail in individual units. So it really doesn't matter if it's a 212 or if it's if it's 12-pack or a 15-pack. It's just a 19.2.
Yeah. I mean, that could come into play a couple different ways. I don't think we'll be able to get away from that completely, because you were saying on the reporting side, but also on the ordering side, the rep level too, to know, does that package configuration come in 12 cans, 15 cans, or like Founders 19.2s, they come 24 cans. So I still think we need that type of visibility. I mean, personally, it'd be great if it was just 19.2. I would love that. Yeah, 19.2. What do we have? But I think that we'll kind of always have that. But back to the original conversation of cleaning it up, right? So where there is just one 12-pack 19.2, there is just one 15-pack 19.2, so we don't have multiple. And it would be great to get away from that. And that would probably lead us into our next conversation when we're talking about tags, or we call them tags, or product styles too, right? To where you could use your product style to just label something as a 19.2. So if you were to pull up my style, you could just say, hey, these are all my 19.2s. Or, we always guide people to clean up styles, because at least with VXP, we use tags. So where when you're in the account and you want to just focus on one particular section, whether it be import, craft, or whatever, we could use tags, pull up just craft, kind of look at that, see what's working, see what's not working, see some opportunities to maybe expand on, and maybe some opportunities to take a deeper look at, and if it's not working, maybe try something else in there. But to be able to go in and use those filters is great, especially if you're with VXP.
Now, product styles, there's probably a point at which we get too much detail too, right? So
Yeah, absolutely.
Any advice around what level of detail we should get to? Should we get all the way down to red ale, or should we just stay with, lager ale stout, IPA, or should we get deeper into IPAs on hazy and doubles and triples and fruit and all of that level of detail too?
Personally, I don't think you should, because if I'm a rep and I'm in at the account level and I want to just see my craft, I don't want to have to click on 10 to 12 different things to see my
Yeah.
craft doors. Now, on the other end, if you are at an account and say it's on premise and somebody says, well, what kind of IPAs do you have in six barrels, right? If you just had the craft tag, you'd have to kind of go through that. So I always recommend keeping it simple. I like 10. The 10, domestic, a craft, import, FMB, seltzer, wine, spirits if you have them, a soda, a water, and an energy. And that breaks up the categories to when we're in the account, we can just focus on the different segments. Wine, in particular, right? If I'm in an account that has a lot of beer, a lot of wine, I want to use that filter just to see wine. I don't want to have to click through, you know, Chardonnay, all the way through all of the different varietals. Um, it's just to see my wine category. Now, if you do want to have a little bit more, I guess, detail, um, then my recommendation would be to still keep it simple, right? With your craft, you could have I would do like a C, right, to stand for craft, so that they're all together too. So C dash light, C dash IPA, maybe C dash fruit, C dash specialty, maybe at the absolute most, to where you're still only clicking on four different categories, but yet you can capture what you're looking for, right? So maybe some lighter crafts, which would be your blondes, maybe Hefeweizen, stuff like that, through your IPA, your fruity beers, and your specialties. Same thing maybe with wine. If you really wanted to break that out, maybe you could do a red, a white, and a sweet. Keep it pretty simple. I guess the ultimate objective is to not have to click on 10, 12 different
Mm-hmm.
categories just to see one segment.
Yeah. And then you're doing a good job of breaking it down between product category, type of beverage, and then style within that category, which would be, IPA, ale, and all of that good stuff.
Yeah, and I guess I only spoke to on the rep level, right, when we're in the account and trying to filter through that, but also on the reporting side, management side,
Yeah.
when I want to see, if I'm having a meeting with a supplier and they're pitching a hazy IPA, I want to see what are the IPAs or what are the crafts doing in my territory. Same thing, by just breaking it out with just water or energy or anything like that, imports, just to see how different categories are performing when you're running a report in your route accounting system.
Yeah, we got to be careful about, I think, summary on these sections is you got to be careful about generating too much detail. There's a right amount of detail for your use case that you have. And the more detail you go, the more narrow and smaller the groups are, which means when you're reporting or when you're looking at it from a opportunity at the rep level, you're going to limit or filter down to a narrower and narrower and narrower and narrower field. So there's a balance between everything's the same and everything's different, and somewhere in the between is the right amount. Um, Other side of this like product setup is brands and brand family. I don't know if I've ever been the best at organizing what should or shouldn't be a brand family and what should or shouldn't be a brand. And there's kind of like the eye of the beholder, I think, a little bit too. So, Miller Lite, Coors Light, Bud Light as a brand family, or is that a brand? And, how does anybody think through that? Mikey, what's your opinion on that?
I think it comes back down to the same original conversation of kind of keeping it simple, right? Where if we think back 10, 20 years ago, maybe even 25 years ago, we didn't really have brand families. We just had brands, right? Bud Light was just Bud Light. There wasn't Bud Light Platinum. There wasn't Bud Light Lime. There wasn't Bud Light Golden Week. So I think still keeping it simple, but having a brand family for Bud, Bud Light. I think that those are brand families, just because there's so many extensions within both now. With Select 55. So yeah, keeping it I see this a lot too, where people use brand families to kind of capture what I would call a category or a segment, right? Maybe a brand family of AB FMBs as a brand family. Well, I'm just trying to find Ritas, all the Ritas as a brand family. I want to type in Rita and find that. So I think going back to just keeping it simple, right? Brand family, all the brands that are captured in that family, and then brands. That should be brand family would be Bud Light, brands would be Bud Light, Platinum, Lime, whatever else is coming out.
So there are a lot of scenarios then where brand family really isn't used. The hierarchy is really supplier, brand family, brand.
Correct.
So would you use, like, there would be opportunities or a decent amount, like a craft supplier that doesn't have brand family. You wouldn't really use a brand family for that. Then you would just like not even publish a brand family as part of it.
Yeah, I mean, I look back to our system at least, and back and forth on that a lot. We had a lot of cleaning up to do on our end too, because if you wanted to just see a supplier or a brand, there was multiple instances where we had a supplier and the brand was all the supplier's name. Well, I have a category for supplier, I have a category for brand family, and I have a category for brand. The brand should be the actual brand. I kind of went back and forth on that a lot, and we had some cleaning up to do. But yeah, as far as a brand family within a supplier, now if you think of somebody as big as New Belgium, right? Voodoo Ranger could be a brand family because there's so many different extensions off of that. Um, but yeah, I think it's however you would want that set up in your own system and how you want to search.
Yeah,
But
that makes sense. Now, this has become less and less impactful as we've moved more digital with the reps and with inventory management too, on brand and or not brand numbers, but package numbers or product numbers. For us at Atlas, we had a really organized system around it because we had a lot of legacy or seasoned veteran and team members that really knew the brand numbers and package numbers is what it should be called. So you stop saying that from my notes. But package numbers or package IDs, is there a method of the madness with this too? Do you think it matters? Do you think it doesn't matter?
call Sandy.
I mean,
that was always our go-to. Call
yeah.
Sandy, she knows. But no, I think there's a method to the madness for sure. I mean, I remember all of our Bud items started with one. All of our Bud Light items started with two, right? Um, so I think that method to the madness of keeping it the first few digits, probably in this day and age, first 2 to 3 digits consistent within the brand family, at least, really helps the reps to where, hey, if every 6 pack bottle ends with O2, right? And Budweiser is 11, so 1102 is a Budweiser 6 pack bottle, but then Bud Light is maybe a 20, but then the first 6 bottles still an O2. So no matter what the brand is, that package last 2 digits always represents the package. First few digits represents the brand family. I think that helps a lot. I mean, with how many SKUs that we're dealing with now, trying to keep the numbers um, organized and consistent and even remember them as a rep is a pretty big task. So when we keep them organized as much as possible, it does help.
For sure. And some RASs you can do alpha and numeric package numbers too, or package IDs now. So you get more opportunity to kind of customize it beyond, just a numbering or numeric system too. At the end of the day, as we go through all of the products, kind of process here, this is where there are multiple people that probably have their hands in the cookie jar when it comes to creating these items. So really, going through the process of cleaning this up is one project on amongst itself. The secondary project is going forward as we're going to be bringing new items in. How do I maintain the same method and the same process? And that's where the administrative team has to build out a help document or a programmatic approach to this is what you need to be filling out and how you need to be documenting this out to build these items out. Because we were a small wholesaler and we had 2 people doing it. big wholesaler will probably have brand managers doing it and or the admin team doing it, and could have 10 or 15 different folks with their hands in the cookie jar as building this out. So those are, documenting out, working through cleaning it up, and then maintaining it long term with that guide is probably the best process to maintain cleanliness and sanity on the product side.
Yeah, yeah, for sure. And we get used to just doing things, right? If it's just the way that they were done since Grandpa did it. We just kind of get stuck in that rut that this is the way it's always been done, but we don't know why. I've been in a few different operations when we were looking at account classifications and brand styles, or types like that. And when I had asked why was it done this way, and usually the general answer is always, we don't know. We've always done it that way. And then they ask somebody else, why do we do it this way? Well, I don't know. It's just always been done that way. Well, couldn't we do it like this? Well, yeah, I don't see why not. So I think a lot of getting stuck in that rut too, and just we do it just because that's the way we've always done it.
Yep. Yep. Now on the customer side, we're moving towards, the customers that we serve. There's two core main types, on and off, basic, like premise on and off.
Mm-hmm.
When you dig in beyond that, let's focus on the off first. How about that, Mikey? So focus on the off first. When you dig in beyond that, I think there's an element of some wholesalers have gotten too detailed around what type of grocery stores there are.
Right. Yeah, for sure.
What type of product customers there are.
Absolutely. And you could get too detailed. Talking about off premise, I don't need to know just the gas station, the convenience station, right? Gas and convenience covers both. Same thing with packaged liquor. I think keeping it consistent, and this benefits multiple people in multiple roles. If you're a rep, and especially if you're using VXP, right? We use account types all the time to give comparisons. If we're looking at packages, how is this package selling in this store versus the channel? If the channel is not clean, that could be skewed in multiple ways. Also on the reporting side, if I'm running reports by just channel, I want that to be clean, not skewed in any way. So I think keeping it small, just like we talked about with our products. A gas convenience, a mass merch, which is going to cover most of your larger mass merch like Walmart's, a grocery, packaged liquor. There shouldn't be on the off-premise side. There shouldn't be 15, 20 different account types. That way we get more into those buckets, right? Packaged liquor stores, I want to know what's selling in packaged liquor, what's not selling in packaged liquor, what's trending up, what's trending down. I want to be able to run reports. If I'm using VXP, I want to be able to have the comps of just my other packaged liquor stores. Same thing with gas convenience. If I'm in a grocery store, I don't want to see comps from a Walmart, or a club store, because those sales are going to be completely different. So yeah, keeping those clean, keeping those consistent, and keeping them manageable and small is key.
For sure. For me, I think the key, like the top ones for off-premise are convenience. Like you said, convenience and gas are the same thing. Drug, mass merch, club, packaged liquor, and then supermarket, grocery. Now, with mass merch and club, like that would be Sam's Club and Costco. And grocery would be things like Walmart and Meijer.
Absolutely. Actually, Walmart, Meijer would fall under the mass merch, right?
You think so?
I would, because they're mass merchandisers. You have your club stores, mass merch, which are the bigger ones, and then grocery. I think of grocery like mom and pops or smaller, maybe Spartan stores fall into those.
So would you put club? So you would put club and mass merch in one bucket?
You could, or you could break them out. It depends on how many club stores you have. I think about a territory our size, pretty small, putting them all in the same bucket. But also, I mean, if you're dealing with 10, 12 different club stores, yeah, having a club store category. And I think our threshold internally with VXP is 6, maybe 7 accounts within a bucket. If there's not at least 6 or 7, it falls into an all other category. So yeah, making sure that, if I have at least 6 or 7 mass merch or 6 or 7 club stores, I want to have those in their own bucket.
Love it. Makes sense to me. Now the on-premise, the Wild
Yes,
West,
Wild West.
Wild West, I want to know the pizzas. I want to know the pizzas, and I want to know versus bar, and I want to know versus, venue. And it's like, this can become obnoxious, right?
Absolutely, and it can become overwhelming, and the data can be so skewed. For sure, we've seen it multiple times.
So what do you think the core like guiding light around on-premise categories? Is it an activity? So, there's kind of a couple ways to think about it. Is it what the drinker is doing inside of the store or inside of the location, like the activity? Is it the food they serve? Is it something else that I'm not thinking about?
I like to look at it as in drinking behavior. You know, I don't think that drinking behavior is going to change much between Indian cuisine, Asian cuisine, pizzeria. You know what I mean? Those are all smaller restaurants. I don't
Hmm.
think that there's a lot of drinking behavior that I really need to track between those. But now a bar, right? A bar slash tavern is going to have different drinking behaviors than maybe a Indian cuisine restaurant. So I also, again, keeping it consistent, keeping it small, keeping it manageable. Your bar slash tavern should be just that, bar slash tavern. Majority of the sales are coming from alcoholic beverages. Yes, they still serve food, but primarily, alcoholic beverages are what's driving their business. Restaurant, just that, right? Primarily, they're getting majority of their income from food. Yes, they do serve alcohol, but it's not a bar where you're hanging out till 2 a.m. Um, Breaking out concessions, special events too. We see that a lot where special events or concessions fall under a bar category. Totally going to skew the numbers they're reporting. Um, when you're looking at comparable packages, if I'm in an on-premise, if I'm in a bar and I want to pull up my recommended to sell or just see what's kind of selling, and I want to look at comparable packages, if I'm recommending the draft, I want to see how it's selling in a bar or a tavern, just like that. I know that the concession or the arena or the stadium down the street selling it at a much higher rate, and I want those numbers also into that category. So but yeah, and I think it's going to vary by market too, right? So, what do you want to see? How narrow do you want to be? And I think not going as super narrow as a lot of people do is key. So maybe you have, different types of restaurants within your business. If you have 20, 30 pizzerias, maybe have a pizzeria, but are the people that are in the pizzerias drinking differently than the people that are in what you have classified as a restaurant? That's kind of the questions that you have to ask yourself
Well,
when
what
you're
the
going
hell are
through
you
it.
going to gain? Like, to
Right.
me, to me, having another category, a subcategory of restaurants labeled out as another sub, like it's another maintenance point. It's another guide. You got to document that in the guide because somebody will screw that up if you don't. Because there needs to be a guide for this side too on the customer setup. And what are you going to gain?
Right.
Drink.
Exactly.
I like the way you described, drinking behavior. You know, what are we really going to gain from pizzeria versus another restaurant versus Buffalo Wild Wings? Or, they're not that different. We can say they're different and we can, choose to go have pizza on Friday versus beer and wings on a Friday night. They're different from that context, but what the hell are we going to gain from one side or the other?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So, and having a category for bar, having a category for tavern, have a category for sports bar, having a you know what I mean? Those are it's blurring the lines. Uh, I want to know how my on-premise is doing. If I'm running a report and I want to see, hey, what is on-premise actually doing? I want to see what the bars are doing. I want to see what
Yeah.
the drinking locations, what is happening, not the casual. I'm going to have a beer or two or a glass of wine with dinner places, but my drinking occasion premises. I want to see what's going on in there. So unblurring those lines, making it clear cut. Hey, what do I want to fall into this bucket? If I want to know more about this bucket, who do I want to see in there? So
Yeah.
and I think the major question that we kind of touched on earlier, who's responsible for that? And most operations, people don't even know how accounts get categorized. Um, in some operations, it's been categorized like that for decades, ever since the account's been opened. So we used to do, at least on an annual basis, we're at accounting, pull those categories into your report, dump them in an Excel file, sort on it, highlight the things that are off. That first few times that you do it, it's gonna be a task, but it's gonna be well worth it in the long run. And then just kind of monitor. When we have new accounts popping up, just make sure that they're falling into the right buckets.
Yep. So it sounds like we're in agreement on bar and tavern, one bucket, restaurant, special events, and venues. What do you do with something like a golf course, or what would be maybe a recreation, or where there's a drinking behavior with an activity as well?
Yeah, I
Do you
think
make that a
that
category?
if you have enough within your territory to break it out and separately, because that is different drinking behavior. Package sales at a golf course are going to be much higher than a bar, package versus draft. Um, and yeah, you're going to have different types of drinking behavior, especially when your brewery rep walks in and says, "Why don't we have this? Whatever it may be, this new tequila, soda, or vodka soda cocktail at all your golf courses." You can easily run a report on just your golf courses and see what's selling, what's not selling, what we've tried, what didn't work. So yeah, if you have quite a few golf courses, for sure, I think breaking that out separately is beneficial.
Awesome. Is there anything else in that like recreation camp that you can think about? Like club, like you could put clubs in there. It's not just golf clubs or private clubs, but you could put other, there's lots of other clubs out there where you're doing recreation with them. Thinking like there's some hunting clubs out in the world. I know there's a couple clients we have that got multiple of those.
Yeah, it's probably going to be territory by territory, and
yeah,
ultimately how you want to see the data and who you want in each bucket.
And how you're going to run reports on it too. It's not just report facing, but it's also reports.
Absolutely.
These things, just like product styles and product categories, need to be highly scrutinized around what am I going to gain by adding or breaking up another category. For every incremental category, there needs to be somebody or a committee or a couple folks that are like, what are we going to gain from that? Because it's super easy to have, just like you can in categories, it's super easy to go from 0 to 100 categories. And what are we going to bonus ourselves out from a reporting standpoint? And what are we going to glean from a reporting standpoint? What are the reps going to gain from a reporting standpoint or a decision point? And they have to be able to be defensible around why you're making that added complexity and carving up the data more and more and more.
Absolutely, yeah. And you have to ask yourself too, how do I want to see this data right now? If your accounting system and these categories are a mess, can you run a report and see how is craft doing on premise at bars? How is import doing at my C stores, right? Those are or F&Bs or seltzers, malt based or vodka based. Those are the kind of questions you have to ask yourself. Like, what kind of visibility do I really want to see? And that's where the importance of having everything categorized is correct. It's important because we want to be able to see those different segments within different account classifications and how they're performing.
Yep. Another item that I'm thinking about from data cleanliness is finished product loss, close to code and out of code, your reason codes. This isn't something we're going to get into big detail right now for this episode, but go back if you're interested in, reason codes and referencing out how you manage your finished product loss and what your codes are for breakage, close to code, returns, all that good stuff. We did a deep dive on that in episode 3, and you'll be able to learn more about, what we argued and negotiated around, what kind of reason code you should have, and should I have a breakage, and should I have a chain restore reset, and should I have a close to code, or, can those get too detailed at the same time? And, the pros and cons of having over detailed there where you lose some maybe focus around what the hell is actually going on with those returns as well. Mikey, any other data cleanliness side that you're seeing or wanted to talk about that I missed?
No, those are the majors. Taking a few minutes. I know we're getting into a terrible time of year to actually have a few extra spare minutes, but when you do, run those reports, whether you're iDig report, Encompass report, look for those categories, count classifications, styles, however it may fall within your route accounting system, and run and see how things are looking.
Love it.
Take time to clean it up a little bit, and it'll be well worth the time and effort.
Well, what kind of brands and product categories are you going to be having tonight in Florida?
Ooh, I don't know, man. I've been craving a nice pina colada, so it's Friday night, so yeah, I don't know. Maybe have a daytime pina colada and then some nighttime locals. I don't know. Wherever the day takes us.
So I like a pina colada, but I like one that's on the rocks, which not very many people have had before, or most of them, we're used to having them frozen. It's a frozen drink, right?
Yeah.
But I'm at a bar in the Caribbean. I think it was I'm trying to remember where it was. I think it was in Puerto Rico. And I had one in St. Lucia on my honeymoon too. They made it on the rocks where they take the coconut milk, or it's not coconut milk. Is that what it is?
It could be, right? I mean, it depends on how it's made. There's also pre-mix. You could just take the mix.
Okay, so they had taken the pina colada mix, and instead of taking it through the whole frozen process, they had mixed a drink and poured it in a glass on ice, and it's incredible. I mean, it's just it's a.
I'm gonna try that.
I loved it. I thought it was great. So if you're doing it at home, Mikey, you might be able to hunt down some ways and think that and Google that and figure that out.
That might help us a lot because, well, the pool that we go to has a bar, so they make you the frozen ones. But I wanted pina colada stuff here at the house, but we don't have a blender here at the house. So over the rocks, it's gonna be perfect.
It's perfect. It's all just here solving your drinking problem.
I love that. Thanks a lot.
Awesome. Well, thanks for joining us today, everybody. Mikey, you have a good weekend and enjoy Florida. And cheers, my man.
Cheers.